Welcome back, young wizard. It's wonderful to have you here again. Tonight, we are going to explore one of the darkest stories in magical history. This is the complete tale of how a boy named Tom Riddle became Lord Voldemort, the most dangerous wizard the world has ever known. We will walk through his early years, the choices he made, and the path that led him from an orphanage in London to becoming the Dark Lord. So settle in, get comfortable, and let your mind drift back through time with me. This is going to be quite a journey. Our story begins on the last night of the year, 1926. It was New Year's Eve, cold and dark in London. While people prepared to celebrate the coming year, something sad was happening at a small orphanage on the edge of the city. A young woman stumbled through the doors of Wool's orphanage. Her name was Merope Gaunt, and she was about to give birth. The woman who ran the orphanage, Mrs. Cole, helped her inside. Merope was weak and tired. She looked like she had given up on life. Mrs. Cole did what she could, and soon a baby boy was born. The young mother held her son for just a moment. She told Mrs. Cole to name him Tom, after his father. His middle name would be Marvolo, after her own father. The baby's last name would be Riddle. Then, just 1 hour after bringing her son into the world, Merope Gaunt closed her eyes and died. Her final wish was that her son would look like his father. And he did. Tom Marvolo Riddle had entered the world alone. He had no family, no home, no one to love him. This was how the story of Lord Voldemort began, with death and loneliness. To understand Tom Riddle, we need to understand where he came from. His mother, Merope, had lived a terrible life. She was born into the Gaunt family, one of the oldest magical families in Britain. The Gaunts could trace their family back to Salazar Slytherin himself, one of the 4 founders of Hogwarts. But by the time Merope was born, the family had fallen apart. They were poor, living in a tiny shack near a village called Little Hangleton. Merope's father, Marvolo, and her brother, Morfin, were cruel to her. They treated her badly and made her life miserable. The only bright spot in Merope's sad existence was a young man who lived nearby. Tom Riddle Sr. was rich and handsome. He lived in a big house on the hill with his parents. Merope watched him ride past on his horse and fell in love with him. But Tom Riddle Sr. would never have loved her back. He did not even know she existed. So Merope did something terrible. She used magic to make him love her. She gave him a love potion that made him believe he had feelings for her that were not real. Under this spell, Tom Riddle Sr. married Merope. She became pregnant with his child. For a short time, Merope was happy. But then she made a choice. Perhaps she hoped he had learned to truly love her. Perhaps she could not keep giving him the potion. Whatever the reason, she stopped the magic. And the moment the spell broke, Tom Riddle Sr. saw what had really happened. He had been controlled, tricked into a marriage he never wanted. He left immediately. He abandoned his pregnant wife and went back to his family. He never wanted to see her again. Merope was heartbroken. She was alone, with no money and no one to help her. She was also pregnant and sick. Some people wondered later why she did not use magic to help herself. She was a witch, after all. She could have saved her own life. But Merope had given up. She did not want to live anymore. She made her way to London and waited until her baby was born. After naming him, she let go of life. Tom Riddle grew up knowing none of this. He knew nothing about his mother or his father. He knew nothing about magic or the special blood that ran through his veins. All he knew was the orphanage. Wool's orphanage was not a happy place. It was cold and grey, full of unwanted children. The people who worked there did their best, But there was no love, no warmth, no comfort. Tom grew up surrounded by other children, but he was alone. He was different from them, and he knew it. Even as a very young boy, Tom Riddle stood apart. He did not cry like the other babies. He watched everything with dark, knowing eyes. As he got older, this strangeness only grew. Tom was smart, much smarter than the other children. He could talk well and learned quickly. But there was something cold about him. He did not make friends. He did not seem to want friends. He seemed to enjoy being alone, watching the others from a distance. And strange things happened around Tom Riddle. Things that could not be explained. Mrs. Cole noticed these things, but could never quite prove that Tom was responsible. There was Billy Stubbs, another boy at the orphanage. He had a pet rabbit that he loved very much. One day, after Billy and Tom had argued about something, the rabbit was found hanging from the rafters. It was clearly dead, and clearly someone had killed it. But who? Tom said he did not do it, and no one could prove otherwise. But Mrs. Cole wondered, how could a rabbit hang itself? Then there was the trip to the seaside. The orphanage took the children on a rare outing to see the ocean. Tom went with 2 other children, Dennis Bishop and Amy Benson, to explore a cave near the water. What happened in that cave, no one ever fully knew. But when the 3 children came out, Dennis and Amy were different. They were scared in a deep way that went beyond normal fear. They would not talk about what Tom had done, but they were never the same after that day. Other children at the orphanage learned to be afraid of Tom Riddle. They could not say exactly why, but they knew to stay away from him. If you made Tom angry, bad things seemed to happen. He never got caught, never left proof, but everyone somehow knew. And Tom seemed to like it that way. He liked the fear. He liked the power it gave him. Tom had discovered something even before he knew what magic was. He could make things happen when he wanted them to. He could move objects without touching them. He could make people feel pain if they hurt him. He could talk to the snake that lived in the orphanage garden, and it understood him. These powers made him feel special. They made him feel strong in a world where he had nothing else. And he kept these abilities secret, using them carefully, always hiding what he could do. Everything changed for Tom Riddle in the summer of 1938. He was 11 years old. One day, Mrs. Cole called him to her office. There was a man there to see him, a tall man with long hair and a beard, wearing strange robes. His name was Albus Dumbledore, and he was a teacher at a school called Hogwarts. Dumbledore told Tom something that changed everything. He told him he was a wizard. The strange things Tom could do were not just random. They were magic. And there was a whole world of people like him. People who could do magic too. There was a school where he could learn to use these powers properly. Tom could leave the orphanage and go to this castle in Scotland where he would be trained. Tom's first reaction was not happiness. It was suspicion. He did not trust easily. He demanded proof that Dumbledore was telling the truth. Dumbledore showed him magic, making things in the room move and change. Tom was convinced. But even in that first meeting, something was wrong. Tom asked about his parents. He wanted to know if his mother had been magical. When Dumbledore said yes, she had been a witch, Tom's face changed. He insisted his mother could not have been magical. If she had been a witch, she would not have died. This told Dumbledore something important about the boy. Tom saw death as weakness. He saw magic as power. And he could not forgive his mother for dying. The meeting continued, and Dumbledore began to see more of who Tom really was. He asked Tom about the cave, and about Billy Stubbs's rabbit. Tom's face showed guilt for just a moment. He had been stealing from the other children, taking their small treasures and hiding them. Dumbledore made him promise to return everything he had stolen. Tom agreed, but Dumbledore could see that Tom was only doing it because he had been caught. There was no real remorse, no understanding that what he had done was wrong. Dumbledore left the orphanage that day feeling worried. He sensed something dark in Tom Riddle, something that troubled him deeply. But he also believed in giving people chances. Maybe at Hogwarts, surrounded by teachers and other students, Tom could become better. Maybe he could learn to make good choices. It was a hope that would not come true. Tom, for his part, left that meeting with new knowledge that shaped everything about how he saw himself. He was special. He was a wizard. There was a whole world waiting for him. And most importantly, he learned something else. His mother had been magical, which meant his father must have been an ordinary person. A muggle, as magical people called them. His father was not special. His father was common and ordinary and had abandoned him. This knowledge planted a seed of hatred in Tom's heart that would grow and grow until it consumed everything. Dumbledore gave Tom money to buy his school things. Tom went to Diagon Alley, the hidden street in London where wizards shopped. He bought robes and books and a cauldron. And he bought his wand at a shop called Ollivander's. The wand maker helped Tom find the right wand. It took a while. Many wands did not work for him. But then Mr. Ollivander brought out a special wand. It was made of yew wood and was 13.5 inches long. Inside it had a single feather from a phoenix. The moment Tom touched it, he felt power flow through him. This wand was his. It recognized him. Mr. Ollivander looked at Tom with a strange expression. He told Tom that this wand was very powerful. He also said something interesting. The phoenix who had given this feather had given only one other feather. That other wand had already been sold. Tom did not know it then, but that other wand would one day belong to a boy named Harry Potter. The connection between these two wands would matter very much. On the 1st of September 1938, Tom Riddle went to King's Cross Station in London. He found platform 9 3/4 by walking through a magical barrier. He boarded the Hogwarts Express, a red train that would take him to his new life. During the train ride, Tom watched and listened. He observed the other students, learning which families were important, which students seemed powerful. He was already planning, already thinking about how to use people. When the train arrived, the first-year students crossed a dark lake in small boats. Tom saw Hogwarts Castle for the first time, lit up against the night sky. It was magnificent. It was the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. This castle would become more important to Tom than any person ever could. Inside the castle, all the new students gathered in the Great Hall. They would be sorted into houses. There were 4 houses at Hogwarts, each one founded by a different wizard or witch long ago. There was Gryffindor for the brave, Hufflepuff for the loyal, Ravenclaw for the clever, and Slytherin for the ambitious. A magical hat called the Sorting Hat would decide where each student belonged. When the Sorting Hat was placed on Tom Riddle's head, it knew immediately where he should go. Tom was sorted into Slytherin House. It took less than a second for the hat to decide. Tom belonged with the ambitious, with those who were determined to be great, with those who valued power and cunning. And Tom was happy about this. Slytherin felt right to him. He did not know yet that he was actually descended from Salazar Slytherin himself, but he would learn that soon enough. Tom Riddle's years at Hogwarts were very important. This is where he learned magic. This is where he discovered his true heritage. And this is where he began his journey toward becoming Lord Voldemort. From the very beginning, Tom was an excellent student. He was brilliant at magic, picking up spells and ideas faster than almost anyone else. He got top grades in every class. His teachers loved him. Well, almost all of his teachers. Tom quickly learned how to make adults like him. He was polite and respectful. He seemed eager to learn. He asked good questions and did his homework perfectly. He helped other students and never caused obvious trouble. To most of his teachers, Tom Riddle seemed like the perfect student. But there was one teacher who was not fooled. Albus Dumbledore now taught transfiguration at Hogwarts. He watched Tom carefully. He remembered their first meeting at the orphanage. He remembered the dead rabbit and the frightened children and the stolen treasures. Dumbledore saw something in Tom that the other teachers missed. He saw the coldness behind the smile. He saw how Tom's eyes changed when he thought no one was looking. But Dumbledore could not prove that Tom was doing anything wrong. Tom was too careful, too clever. So Dumbledore simply watched and waited and hoped that Tom would make better choices. Tom also made what he called friends at Hogwarts. He gathered a group of other Slytherin students around him. These were mostly boys from old magical families. Families that believed pure-blood wizards were better than everyone else. Tom talked to them about power and greatness. He told them they were special, that they deserved to rule. These students worshipped Tom. They followed him and did what he asked. But they were not really his friends. Tom did not care about them as people. He saw them as useful. He saw them as tools. Years later, many of these same boys would become Death Eaters, the followers who served Lord Voldemort. But even in school, the pattern was already clear. Tom led and others followed, and Tom felt no real connection to any of them. What Tom really cared about was learning his own history. He became obsessed with finding out about his family. He spent hours in the library looking through old records. He searched the trophy room for his father's name. He looked through lists of prefects and award winners. He was sure his father must have been a wizard, a great one. His father must have gone to Hogwarts. But Tom could not find his father's name anywhere. No Tom Riddle had ever attended Hogwarts. No Tom Riddle had ever won an award or been a prefect. This confused Tom at first. Then, slowly, he realized the truth. His father had not been the magical parent. His mother had been the witch. And this realization filled Tom with disgust and anger. Tom could not forgive his mother for being weak enough to die. Now he learned that his father was not even magical. His father was a muggle, an ordinary person with no power at all. Tom hated this. He hated being half muggle. He hated that his father had abandoned him. And so Tom decided something. He would not keep his father's name. He would create a new name for himself. He started using his middle name, Marvolo, to search for his mother's family. And he found something amazing. The name Marvolo was unusual. Tom discovered that it belonged to his grandfather, Marvolo Gaunt. And the Gaunt family was anything but ordinary. They were one of the oldest magical families in England. More than that, they were descended from Salazar Slytherin himself. Tom Riddle was the heir of Slytherin. This changed everything for Tom. He was not just any wizard. He had the blood of one of the greatest wizards in history flowing through his veins. This made him special. This made him important. And it gave him a purpose. Salazar Slytherin had believed that only pure-blood wizards deserved to learn magic. He had believed that people with non-magical parents should not be allowed at Hogwarts. Slytherin had even built a secret chamber somewhere in the castle, a place where he had hidden a monster that would one day kill all the Muggle-born students. This was just a legend, a story that most people did not believe. But Tom Riddle believed it, and he decided to find that chamber. For 5 years, Tom searched for the Chamber of Secrets. He explored the castle whenever he could. He looked in every corner, every hidden passage, every forgotten room. He read old books about the history of Hogwarts. He talked to the ghosts who had lived in the castle for hundreds of years. He was patient and careful, never letting anyone know what he was really looking for. During this time, Tom also discovered something else about himself. He could speak to snakes. One day, he was talking to a snake in the grass outside the castle. He was just having a conversation with it, the way you might talk to a pet. Then he realized that the other students were staring at him. They looked shocked and a little scared. Tom learned that speaking to snakes was very rare. It was called parcel tongue, and it was a gift that ran in Slytherin's family. Most wizards could not do it. In fact, most people saw it as a mark of dark magic. But for Tom, it was proof. He really was Slytherin's heir, and it gave him the key he needed to find the chamber. In the spring of 1943, Tom Riddle finally found what he had been looking for. He was in his 5th year at Hogwarts now. He had been made a prefect, which gave him permission to be in the hallways at night. One evening, he went to a bathroom on the 2nd floor. It was a girl's bathroom, and no one used it much because it was haunted by a ghost. Tom looked around the bathroom carefully, and then he saw it. On one of the sinks, there was a tiny snake carved into the metal. It was so small that most people would never notice it. But Tom saw it. He spoke to it in parcel tongue, commanding it to open. And the sink moved. It swung aside to reveal a large pipe leading down into darkness. Tom had found the entrance to the Chamber of Secrets. He slid down the pipe and found himself in a tunnel deep under the castle. He followed the tunnel until he came to a huge door. The door was covered in carved serpents. Tom spoke to them in Parseltonga, and the door opened. Beyond it was a chamber so large it was hard to believe. The room was long and narrow, with tall stone pillars on either side. The pillars were carved to look like snakes, and they stretched up into shadows. At the far end of the chamber stood an enormous statue. It showed Salazar Slytherin himself, with a long beard and a stern face. And then Tom heard something move, something huge. From the mouth of the statue came a creature that made Tom's heart beat faster. It was a basilisk, a giant serpent. The creature was massive, with scales that gleamed in the dim light. It was one of the most dangerous magical creatures in existence. A basilisk's stare could kill instantly. Even seeing its reflection could turn someone to stone, and this creature had been waiting here for 1,000 years, waiting for Slytherin's heir to return. Tom spoke to the basilisk in Parseltongue. He commanded it, and it obeyed. The creature recognized him as its master. Tom now had a weapon that no one else at Hogwarts could fight. He had found exactly what Salazar Slytherin had left behind. Tom had to be very careful about what he did next. He could not let anyone know he had found the chamber. So he started slowly. He would sneak down to the chamber at night and send the basilisk through the pipes that ran through the castle. The creature could travel through the plumbing, moving from place to place without being seen. Students began hearing strange sounds. They heard a voice hissing in the walls, speaking in a language they did not understand. Only Tom could understand it, because the basilisk was speaking Parseltongue. Then students started being attacked. They were found frozen like statues, their eyes wide with fear. They had seen the basilisk, but they had not looked directly at it. They had seen its reflection in water or through a ghost. This saved their lives, but it left them petrified, stuck in place like stone. The school fell into panic. Parents sent angry letters. The Ministry of Magic got involved. The headmaster, Armando Dippet, was under huge pressure to find out what was happening. If he could not stop the attacks, Hogwarts would be closed. Tom watched all of this happen with satisfaction. He was proving that he was powerful. He was carrying out Slytherin's wishes, and no one suspected him. He was still the perfect student, polite and helpful, worried along with everyone else about the mysterious attacks. Then, in June of 1943, something went wrong. There was a girl named Myrtle Warren. She was a Ravenclaw student, and the other students were not kind to her. They made fun of her thick glasses and her crying. On this particular day, Myrtle had been teased badly. She ran to a bathroom to cry alone. It was the same bathroom where the entrance to the chamber was hidden. Myrtle was in one of the stalls crying when she heard someone come in. She heard them speaking in a strange language. She was annoyed. This was her place to be alone, and someone had disturbed her. So she opened the stall door to tell them to go away. And she looked directly into the face of the basilisk. Myrtle Warren died instantly. Her body fell to the floor. She was the first person to be killed at Hogwarts in many, many years. And Tom Riddle had caused it. When Myrtle's body was found, everything changed. Headmaster Dippet announced that if the attacks did not stop immediately, the school would close. Everyone would be sent home. For Tom, this was the worst thing that could happen. He could not go back to the orphanage. He would not go back to that muggle place where he had been so unhappy. He had to make sure Hogwarts stayed open, and that meant he needed to find someone to blame for the attacks. He needed what people call a scapegoat. Tom chose his target carefully. There was a boy named Rubeus Hagrid, a third-year Gryffindor student. Hagrid was big for his age, actually a half-giant, though not many people knew that. He was kind, but not very clever. And Tom knew Hagrid's secret. Hagrid loved dangerous creatures. He had been secretly raising a giant spider called an acromantula. The spider's name was Aragog, and Hagrid kept it hidden in a cupboard in the castle. This was perfect for Tom's plan. On the night of June 13th, Tom put his plan into action. He found Hagrid and told him that he had been following the monster that was causing the attacks. He said he had cornered it, and he hinted strongly that it was Hagrid's creature. Hagrid panicked. He was terrified that Aragog would be blamed. He rushed to move the spider to safety, somewhere it would not be found. Tom immediately went to Headmaster Dippet. He told Dippet that he had been trying to catch the monster, and that he had discovered Hagrid with a dangerous creature. He explained that Hagrid's spider must have been responsible for all the attacks, including Myrtle's death. Dippet believed Tom. Why would he not? Tom was a prefect, a model student with perfect grades. He had no reason to lie. Hagrid, on the other hand, had been keeping a highly dangerous creature in the castle without permission. It was obvious who was telling the truth. Hagrid was expelled from Hogwarts. His wand was broken, which meant he could never use magic properly again. Dumbledore fought for Hagrid. He knew, somehow, that Hagrid was innocent. He knew the real monster was still out there, but he could not prove it. Dumbledore did manage to convince Dippet to let Hagrid stay at Hogwarts as the gamekeeper, someone who would take care of the grounds and the forest. But Hagrid's education was over. His future had been destroyed, and Tom Riddle got away with murder. Not only that, but he was given an award. He received a special trophy for services to the school. He was celebrated as a hero, the student who had caught the person responsible for the attacks. It was perfect. Tom had committed a terrible crime and been rewarded for it. This taught him something important. If you were clever enough, if you were careful enough, you could do anything and never face the consequences. You just needed to be smarter than everyone else. And Tom believed he was. The murder of Myrtle Warren was important for another reason. Tom had been studying very dark magic, the darkest magic that existed. He had learned about something called Horcruxes. This was magic so evil that most books would not even explain it. But Tom had found the information. He had learned what a Horcrux was and how to make one. A Horcrux was a way to cheat death. To make one, a wizard had to commit murder. The act of killing someone split your soul in two. Then you could take one piece of your soul and hide it in an object. As long as that object existed, you could not truly die. Even if your body was destroyed, the piece of soul in the Horcrux would keep you alive. It was the darkest kind of magic imaginable. To make a Horcrux, you had to destroy the most precious thing you had, your own soul. Most wizards would never even consider it. But Tom Riddle was obsessed with death. He hated the idea of dying. He thought death was weakness, the worst thing that could happen to anyone. He was determined never to die. So Tom used Myrtle's murder to create his first Horcrux. He took his school diary, a simple black book where he had been writing his thoughts. He performed the dark magic needed to split his soul. Then he placed a piece of his soul inside the diary. This diary was now more than just a book. It contained part of Tom Riddle's essence, his identity, his memory. It could even think and act on its own. Many years later, this diary would cause terrible trouble. But for now, Tom hid it away. He had taken his first step toward immortality. He had begun the process that would eventually make him into Lord Voldemort. In the summer of 1943, after the school year ended, Tom went on another journey. He wanted to learn more about his mother's family. Using what he had learned from his research, he travelled to Little Hangleton, the village where the Gaunt family had lived. He found the old Gaunt shack, a terrible little house that was falling apart. Inside, he met his uncle, Morfin Gaunt. Morfin was not a pleasant man. He lived alone in filth and poverty. He was violent and unstable. When Tom first arrived, Morfin was hostile. He did not want visitors. But then Tom did something that changed Morfin's attitude. He spoke Parseltongue. He revealed that he was Merope's son. This made Morfin laugh. He thought it was funny that his sister had married a muggle and been abandoned. Morfin told Tom about his father, about how Tom Riddle Sr. lived in the big house on the hill. He told Tom how his father had left Merope when he realized she had tricked him with magic. Tom listened to all of this, and his hatred grew. His father was not just a muggle. His father had abandoned his mother to die. His father was living a comfortable life, while Tom had grown up in an orphanage. This could not stand. Tom made a decision. He would punish his father. He would make him pay for what he had done. Tom used magic to knock Morfin unconscious. He stole Morfin's wand and also took something else. There was a ring in the house, a heavy gold ring with a black stone. It had been passed down through the Gaunt family for generations. The ring had the Gaunt family symbol on it, and Tom wanted it. He took the ring and left Morfin lying on the floor. Then Tom Riddle went to his father's house. The Riddle house was beautiful, a grand mansion where wealthy people lived comfortable lives. Tom walked inside. He found his father having dinner with his parents, Tom's grandparents. Tom Riddle Sr. looked up and saw a young man standing there. He had no idea who this stranger was. He certainly did not recognize his own son, the child he had never met. Tom raised the wand he had stolen from Morphin. He spoke 3 words in a cold, clear voice. He cast the killing curse, the spell that murders instantly. His father fell dead. Before anyone could react, Tom turned to his grandparents and killed them too. 3 people dead in moments, murdered without mercy. Tom felt no sadness, no regret. He felt satisfaction. They were muggles. They did not deserve to live. And his father had abandoned his mother. This was justice. Tom did one more thing before he left. He went back to the Gaunt Shack. He used magic to change Morphin's memories. He made Morphin believe that he had killed the Riddles himself. Morphin thought he had gone to their house in a rage and murdered them for revenge. When the bodies were discovered, the Muggle police could not explain what had happened. There were no wounds, no signs of violence. The Riddles had just died. But the Ministry of Magic investigated too. They found Morphin Gaunt, who confessed to the murders. Morphin had already been in trouble for using magic against Muggles before. He had even served time in Azkaban prison for it. So when he confessed, everyone believed him. Morphin was sentenced to life in Azkaban, where he would eventually die, still believing he was guilty. Tom Riddle went back to Hogwarts that fall, and no one suspected what he had done. He now had his second Horcrux. He used the murders of his father and grandparents to split his soul again. This time, he placed the piece of soul into the ring he had stolen from his uncle. The ring became a Horcrux, a container for part of Tom's soul. Tom wore the ring sometimes, a reminder of his heritage and his power. He had now split his soul twice. He had murdered 4 people before his 16th birthday, and he was just getting started. During his remaining years at Hogwarts, Tom learned more about Horcruxes. He wanted to know how far this magic could be pushed. Could you split your soul more than once? Could you make multiple Horcruxes? He found a teacher who could help him, though the teacher did not realize what Tom was really asking about. Professor Horace Slughorn taught potions at Hogwarts. He was Tom's head of house, and he loved collecting talented students. He hosted special gatherings in his office for his favorite students, and Tom was always invited. Slughorn thought Tom was wonderful. He thought Tom would go on to do great things. One evening, Tom asked Slughorn a question about dark magic. He made it sound innocent, like he was just curious about theory. He asked what would happen if someone split their soul more than once. What if someone made multiple Horcruxes? Slughorn was horrified by the question. Making even one Horcrux was evil beyond words. Making more than one was unthinkable. But Tom pressed him. He wanted to know if it was possible. Slughorn, uncomfortable but unable to refuse to answer a question about magical theory, said yes, it was theoretically possible. 7 was supposed to be the most magically powerful number. So theoretically, someone could split their soul 7 times, making 6 Horcruxes and keeping 1 piece in their own body. Tom thanked him and filed this information away. 7 pieces. He would split his soul into 7 pieces. It was a plan that no one had ever attempted before, something that would make him unique in all of magical history. After this conversation, Tom never spoke to Slughorn about it again. But Slughorn would remember that conversation for the rest of his life, and it would fill him with guilt. Tom Riddle graduated from Hogwarts in June of 1945. He had been made head boy in his final year, the highest honor a student could achieve. He had won awards and earned top marks in every test. His teachers thought he was brilliant. Many expected him to join the Ministry of Magic and work his way up to important positions. Some even thought he might become Minister for Magic one day. But Tom had different plans. He did not want to work for other people. He did not want to slowly climb through a bureaucracy. He wanted power, and he wanted it on his own terms. Before he left school, Tom did something interesting. He went to Headmaster Dippet and asked for a job. He wanted to teach defense against the dark arts at Hogwarts. He wanted to stay at the school, the place that had become more of a home to him than anywhere else. But Dippet said no. He told Tom he was too young, only 18 years old. He needed more experience. Come back in a few years, Dippet said, and they would talk about it again. Tom left the headmaster's office disappointed. He had wanted to stay at Hogwarts, but he would have to make other plans. Instead of joining the ministry, Tom took a job at a shop in Nocturne Alley, a dark street in magical London where questionable goods were sold. The shop was called Borgin and Burke's, and it dealt in dark magical objects. Tom's job was to find valuable items and convince people to sell them to the shop, usually for much less than they were worth. Tom was very good at this job. He was handsome and charming. He could make old ladies trust him and sell him their treasures. He knew a lot about magical objects and could identify what was valuable. But he was not doing this job just for the money. Tom was looking for specific things. He wanted to find objects that had belonged to the founders of Hogwarts. These would be perfect for turning into Horcruxes. And he found 2 of them through an old witch named Hepzibah Smith. Hepzibah was wealthy and very proud of her magical collection. She loved having visitors who would admire her treasures. Tom became one of her favorite visitors. He would come to her house and listen to her talk about her objects. He flattered her and made her feel special. And one day, Hepzibah showed Tom her 2 most precious possessions. The first was a small golden cup. It was engraved with a badger, the symbol of Hufflepuff House. This cup had belonged to Helga Hufflepuff herself, one of the 4 founders of Hogwarts. Hepzibah had bought it from someone years ago, and she was very proud to own it. The second object was even more special to Tom. It was a heavy gold locket with a serpent on it. This locket had belonged to Salazar Slytherin himself. Hepzibah explained that she had bought it from a poor woman years ago, though she did not know the woman was from the Gaunt family. Tom looked at these 2 objects and knew what he had to do. He needed them. They were perfect for his purposes. 2 days after Hepzibah showed Tom these treasures, she was found dead in her house. Her house elf, a creature named Hokey, was blamed for the death. It appeared that Hokey had accidentally put poison in her mistress's cocoa. The house elf was confused and could not remember clearly what had happened. People assumed the old elf had made a mistake. The cup and the locket were missing, but no one suspected the nice young man from Borgin and Burke's. Tom had used magic to change Hokey's memories, just as he had done with his uncle Morphin. He had made the house elf believe she was responsible. By the time anyone thought to question Tom about the missing objects, he was gone. Tom Riddle disappeared from the magical world. He quit his job at Borgin and Burke's and vanished completely. No one knew where he went or what he was doing. Tom spent the next several years traveling. He went to dark places and learned dark magic. He pushed himself further into the shadows than anyone had gone before. During these years, Tom created more Horcruxes. He used Hepzibah Smith's murder to turn both the cup and the locket into Horcruxes. He had to commit separate murders for each one. The details of these murders are not fully known, but it's believed he killed a Muggle tramp for the locket. This was unusual for Tom. Usually he chose his victims with care. people whose deaths meant something to him. But for the locket, he simply killed someone no one would miss. Tom also went searching for another piece of Hogwarts history. Years earlier, when he was still a student, he had talked to the ghost of Ravenclaw Tower. Her name was Helena Ravenclaw, though most people called her the Grey Lady. Tom had been charming and kind to her. He had made her feel special, made her trust him, and she had told him a secret she had kept for almost 1,000 years. Helena was the daughter of Rowena Ravenclaw, one of the founders of Hogwarts. Long ago, Helena had stolen her mother's diadem, a kind of crown that was supposed to make the wearer wiser. Helena had run away to Albania and hidden the diadem there. She had been killed for her crime and now haunted Hogwarts as a ghost, forever keeping the secret of where she had hidden her mother's treasure. But she had told Tom where to find it. Now, years after leaving school, Tom went to Albania. He searched the forests there until he found what he was looking for. The diadem was still hidden where Helena had left it centuries ago. Tom took it, and based on what we know, he used the murder of an Albanian peasant to turn the diadem into a Horcrux. Tom now had 5 Horcruxes: the diary, the ring, the cup, the locket, and the diadem. 5 pieces of his soul hidden in objects, plus the piece that remained in his own body. That made 6 pieces total. He had planned to make 7, splitting his soul into the most magically powerful number. But he decided to save the last one for a special occasion. He would make his final Horcrux when he killed someone truly important. All this dark magic was changing Tom. When he had left Hogwarts, he had been handsome, a young man with dark hair and good looks. But splitting his soul so many times was damaging him. The more Horcruxes he made, the less human he became. His face began to change. His features became flatter, sharper. His eyes, once dark, began to turn red. His skin became pale, almost white. He looked sick, unhealthy. The handsome young man was disappearing, replaced by something that looked less and less human. During these years away from Britain, Tom also fully embraced his new identity. He stopped being Tom Riddle completely. He became Lord Voldemort. This name was an anagram of his birth name, the letters rearranged. Tom Marvolo Riddle became I am Lord Voldemort. He had created this name for himself while still at school, using it only with his closest friends. But now it became his only name. He rejected everything connected to Tom Riddle, especially the name that came from his Muggle father. When Tom returned to Britain, he looked very different from the young man who had left. People who had known him before barely recognized him. He had changed himself into something dark and frightening. He had become Lord Voldemort. Sometime around the mid-1950s, Voldemort returned to Hogwarts one more time. He asked for a meeting with the headmaster. Armando Dippet was still in charge, now very old. Voldemort, who now looked nothing like the student Dippet remembered, asked again for the defense against the dark arts teaching position. Again, Dippet refused. By this time, Dumbledore was a senior teacher at Hogwarts. He was present during the meeting, and he did not trust this changed Tom Riddle. Dumbledore advised Dippet to refuse the application. Looking back later, Dumbledore believed Voldemort had never really expected to get the job. He was too different now, too obviously dark. The job interview was just an excuse to come back to Hogwarts. Voldemort had another purpose for this visit. He wanted to hide one of his Horcruxes in the castle, somewhere only he would know about. There was a room at Hogwarts called the Room of Requirement. This room was magical. It appeared when someone really needed it, and it became whatever that person required. Voldemort knew about this room. He went there, and asked for a place to hide something. The room gave him what he wanted, showing him a vast space filled with objects that other people had hidden over the centuries. Voldemort hid the diadem there, placing it on the head of an old stone statue. He believed no one would ever find it. The room of requirement was full of thousands of objects collected over hundreds of years. The diadem would be lost among them, safe forever. Before Voldemort left Hogwarts that day, he did one more thing. He placed a curse on the defense against the dark arts position. From that day forward, no teacher would be able to hold that job for more than 1 year. Some would die, some would be revealed as frauds, some would simply leave. But year after year, the position would never stay filled. It was Voldemort's revenge for being rejected. Soon after this visit, Armando Dippet retired, and Albus Dumbledore became headmaster of Hogwarts. This was important because Dumbledore was the one Wizard Voldemort feared. Dumbledore was powerful, perhaps as powerful as Voldemort himself. And Dumbledore was good, truly good, in a way Voldemort could never understand. As long as Dumbledore was alive and protecting Hogwarts, Voldemort knew he had to be careful. By the late 1960s, Voldemort was ready to step out of the shadows. He had spent years preparing, gathering knowledge, making himself more powerful. Now he began to gather followers. He reached out to the students who had been his friends at school, many of whom were now adults with their own positions in magical society. He recruited others who shared his views about pure-blood wizards being superior to everyone else. These followers became known as Death Eaters. They wore black robes and masks to hide their faces. Voldemort branded them with a mark on their left arms, a skull with a snake coming out of its mouth. This mark connected them to him. He could use it to summon them, and they could use it to call him if they needed him. The Death Eaters cast this mark in the sky above houses where they had committed murders, as a sign that they had been there. People began to fear seeing that mark. It meant death had come. Voldemort's message was simple but powerful. He told his followers that pure-blood wizards were better than everyone else. He said that Muggles and Muggle-born wizards were ruining the magical world. He promised to return things to the old ways, when pure-blood families ruled without question. This message appealed to certain people. Some truly believed that magical blood made them superior. These people welcomed Voldemort's ideas. Others joined because they were afraid. Voldemort was becoming very powerful, and it seemed safer to be on his side than against him. Still, others wanted power for themselves. They saw Voldemort as someone who was going to win, and they wanted to share in that victory. Voldemort did not really care why people followed him, as long as they obeyed. He did not trust any of them. He saw them all as tools, useful for getting what he wanted, but not worthy of real loyalty or friendship. Voldemort also recruited dark creatures to his side. Giants, who had been pushed to the edges of the magical world and treated badly, joined him when he promised them revenge. Werewolves, who faced terrible prejudice and could not get jobs, were drawn to someone who offered them acceptance and power. Dementors, the dark creatures that fed on happiness and were supposed to guard Azkaban prison, eventually abandoned their posts to serve Voldemort. He was building an army, and it was growing stronger every day. Around 1970, what would later be called the First Wizarding War officially began. At first, Voldemort's campaign was quiet. People disappeared, but it was hard to prove what had happened to them. Deaths looked like accidents. The Ministry of Magic did not want to admit that something terrible was happening. But as Voldemort grew bolder, the attacks became more open. Death Eaters started targeting Muggles and Muggle-born wizards directly. They used terrible curses. They tortured people. They killed entire families. They cast the dark mark over the houses where they murdered people, making sure everyone knew who was responsible. The magical world fell into fear. No one knew who could be trusted. Death Eaters had infiltrated the ministry itself. They used the imperious curse to control people, making innocent workers do terrible things without realizing what they were doing. Friends became suspicious of friends. Families were torn apart. The Ministry of Magic struggled to fight back. The Auras, the magical police who fought dark wizards, were overwhelmed. For every Death Eater they caught, 2 more seemed to appear. The Minister of Magic did not know what to do. Some people began to think that Voldemort could not be stopped. This was exactly what Voldemort wanted. He wanted people to be afraid. He wanted them to think he was invincible. Fear was a weapon as powerful as any curse. But there was resistance. Albus Dumbledore, now headmaster of Hogwarts and widely respected as the greatest wizard of the age, created a secret organization to fight Voldemort. It was called the Order of the Phoenix. This group included some of the bravest witches and wizards in Britain. They fought Death Eaters, protected potential victims, and worked to stop Voldemort's plans. The war lasted for years. It reached its worst point in the late 1970s. By then, Voldemort's power was enormous. He controlled large parts of the country through fear. People were too scared to speak out against him. Even saying his name became something people were afraid to do. They called him You-Know-Who, or He Who Must Not Be Named, instead. Death Eaters attacked openly. They killed Muggles just to spread terror. They murdered Muggle-born wizards and anyone who defended them. Entire families died. The Ministry seemed powerless to stop it. Some Ministry officials were secretly Death Eaters themselves, or were being controlled by them. Voldemort rarely appeared in person during this time. He directed his followers from hidden locations, moving between safe houses. He had become more myth than man, a dark shadow that everyone feared, but few had actually seen. When he did show himself, it was to commit acts of particular cruelty, to make examples that would increase the fear. His magical abilities had grown incredibly strong. He could fly without a broomstick, something no other wizard could do. He could apparate, disappear, and reappear in another place, without making the usual loud crack of sound. His mastery of dark magic was complete. He could kill with a single curse, quickly and without any hesitation or remorse. It seemed like nothing could stop him. But then something happened that changed everything. A prophecy was made. In 1980, a woman named Sybil Trelawney was interviewing for a job as the divination teacher at Hogwarts. During her meeting with Dumbledore, she fell into a strange trance. Her voice changed, and she spoke words that came from something beyond herself. She made a prophecy about a child who would be born at the end of July. This child would be born to parents who had defied Voldemort 3 times. The child would have a power that Voldemort did not understand, and one of them would have to kill the other, because neither could live while the other survived. Dumbledore heard this entire prophecy, but someone else heard part of it too. One of Voldemort's followers, a man named Severus Snape, had been listening at the door. He was caught before he could hear the whole prophecy, but he heard enough. He heard about a child who would be a threat to the Dark Lord. Snape immediately went to Voldemort and told him what he had heard. Voldemort became obsessed with this prophecy. Here was a threat to everything he had built, a child with the power to defeat him. This could not be allowed to happen. The child had to die before this power could develop. But there was a problem. The prophecy could fit more than one child. Two boys had been born at the end of July in 1980. Both had parents who were in the Order of the Phoenix and had fought Voldemort directly 3 times. One was Neville Longbottom, the son of Frank and Alice Longbottom. The other was Harry Potter, the son of James and Lily Potter. Voldemort had to decide which child the prophecy meant. He chose Harry Potter. There were several reasons for this choice. Harry was a half-blood, like Voldemort himself. Harry's mother was Muggle-born, which Voldemort despised. Voldemort saw something of himself in this child, a connection that made him believe Harry was the one the prophecy spoke about. So Voldemort decided to kill Harry Potter, but the Potters were not easy to find. They had gone into hiding, protected by powerful magic called the Fidelius Charm. This magic hid their location inside a person's soul. That person, called the Secret Keeper, was the only one who could reveal where they were. As long as the Secret Keeper did not tell, the Potters could not be found by anyone. The Potters chose their Secret Keeper carefully, or so they thought. They chose Peter Pettigrew, a friend from their school days. Peter had been in Gryffindor House with James Potter. They had been part of a group of friends who called themselves the Marauders. Everyone trusted Peter, but Peter was living a lie. At some point during the war, Peter had become afraid. He saw that Voldemort seemed to be winning. He saw that being in the Order of the Phoenix was dangerous. Friends were dying. Peter was a coward at heart, and he made a terrible choice. He went to the Death Eaters and offered to spy for them. Voldemort was very pleased to have a spy inside the Order of the Phoenix. Peter sat in their meetings and reported everything to Voldemort. He told Voldemort where Order members would be. His information led to deaths. And when the Potters made him their secret keeper, Peter saw his chance to give Voldemort what he wanted most. On October 31st, 1981, Peter Pettigrew betrayed the Potters. He told Voldemort where they were hiding. He gave him the address of their house in Godric's Hollow, a village that was named after Godric Gryffindor himself. That night, Voldemort went to Godric's Hollow. He found the house where the Potters lived. He blasted through the door with magic. James Potter heard the explosion. He shouted to his wife to take Harry and run while he held Voldemort off. But James had left his wand upstairs. He faced Voldemort without any way to defend himself. Voldemort raised his wand and spoke the killing curse. James Potter fell dead. Voldemort stepped over his body and went upstairs. He found Lily Potter standing in front of her son's crib. Harry was just 15 months old, a baby who could barely walk. Voldemort told Lily to stand aside. He did not need to kill her. His target was the child. But Lily refused to move. She begged Voldemort to kill her instead, to spare her son. She offered her own life if he would just leave Harry alone. Voldemort could have pushed her out of the way. He could have used magic to move her. But he chose to kill her. He raised his wand again and cast the killing curse. Lily Potter fell dead in front of her son's crib. Now there was nothing between Voldemort and Harry Potter. Voldemort pointed his wand at the child. He spoke the curse that had killed so many people before. The green light shot toward the baby, and then something impossible happened. The curse rebounded. Instead of killing Harry, it destroyed Voldemort. The house exploded with magical force. Voldemort's body was torn apart. He was reduced to something less than a ghost, barely conscious, unable to hold any physical form. Harry Potter survived with nothing but a lightning-shaped scar on his forehead. What had happened? How had a baby defeated the most powerful dark wizard in the world? The answer lay in something Voldemort had never understood. When Lily Potter gave her life to save her son, she created a protection. It was ancient magic, the oldest kind, powered by love and sacrifice. This protection lived in Harry's blood and skin. When Voldemort tried to kill Harry, he could not break through this protection. The killing curse had nowhere to go except back at the person who cast it. Voldemort had been destroyed by his own curse, broken on a mother's love. Voldemort's followers scattered in fear and confusion. Some were caught and sent to prison. Others claimed they had been under the Imperious curse, that they had been forced to serve Voldemort and were really innocent. Some escaped and went into hiding. The Death Eaters did not know what to do without their leader. The magical world erupted in celebration. People danced in the streets. They held parties. They came out of hiding. The nightmare was over. Voldemort was gone. They called Harry Potter the boy who lived, the child who had somehow survived the killing curse and defeated the Dark Lord. But Voldemort was not truly dead. He could not die, because his Horcruxes still existed. The pieces of his soul hidden in the diary, the ring, the locket, the cup, and the diadem kept him tethered to life. The part of his soul that had been in his body was cast loose, separated from the destroyed flesh. He became something barely alive, a spirit without substance, a consciousness without a body. Voldemort fled into the night. He drifted away from Britain, eventually finding his way to the forests of Albania. There he existed in a state that was neither life nor death. He could not interact with the physical world. He could barely think clearly. He was weaker than the weakest ghost, yet he was alive. This was the immortality he had worked so hard to achieve. He had split his soul so many times to avoid death. And now he could not die, even though his body was destroyed. But he also could not truly live. He was trapped in this horrible existence, waiting for an opportunity that might never come. The years passed slowly for Voldemort. He drifted through the Albanian forests like mist. Sometimes he tried to possess animals, to use their bodies to gain some physical form. But these possessions never lasted long. The animals could not contain him. Their bodies rejected the presence of his broken soul, so he remained in the shadows, a whisper of darkness, filled with hatred and rage. He hated Harry Potter for defeating him. He hated Dumbledore for opposing him. He hated the world for continuing without him. But most of all, he hated being weak. He had done everything to avoid death, to make himself powerful and eternal. And now he was less than nothing, unable to act, unable to even show himself to the world. During these years, Voldemort had time to think about what had gone wrong. He replayed that night in Godric's Hollow over and over in his mind. He knew about the prophecy. He knew Harry Potter had been marked as a threat. But how had a baby, a child who could not even walk or talk, destroyed him? What magic had protected the boy? Voldemort did not understand. He knew about many kinds of magic, but he had never studied the magic of love. He had dismissed it as weak, as something only foolish people valued. Now that dismissal had cost him everything. But Voldemort did not learn from this. He did not realize that his inability to understand love was his greatest weakness. Instead, he simply became more determined. He would return. Somehow, some way, he would find a path back to power. And when he did, he would kill Harry Potter. He would finish what he had started. The prophecy would not come true. He would make sure of it. For 13 years, Voldemort existed in this terrible state. 13 years of being less than alive, trapped between life and death. His followers did not know where he was. Many believed he was truly gone forever. Some remained loyal, believing he would return. But they did not know how to find him or help him. Voldemort was truly alone. And in that loneliness, his hatred grew. He had no body, no power, no followers at his side. But he had his will. He had his determination. He had his absolute refusal to accept defeat. These things kept him going through the long years of exile. This is where our story ends for tonight. At this turning point between Voldemort's first fall and his eventual return, we have walked through the complete rise of Tom Riddle, from his birth on a cold December night to his transformation into Lord Voldemort. We have seen how a lonely boy with no love in his life made choice after choice that led him deeper into darkness. We saw him open the Chamber of Secrets and commit his first murder. We watched him create Horcruxes, splitting his soul again and again in his desperate fear of death. We witnessed him gather followers and start a war. And we saw him fall, destroyed by the very thing he never understood, a mother's love for her child. Tom Riddle was born with nothing. He could have chosen to use his gifts to help others, to find connection and meaning in relationships. He could have chosen friendship and trust. He could have chosen to accept death as a natural part of life and focus on living well. But at every turning point, Tom chose power over love. He chose isolation over connection. He chose fear over hope. He chose to hurt rather than help. And these choices, made again and again over many years, transformed him from a troubled boy into a monster. The story of Voldemort's rise is a story about choices. It shows us that circumstances do not determine who we become. Tom had a difficult childhood, yes. He was born into tragedy and raised without love. But he still had choices. And he chose darkness. His story is also about the danger of fearing death so much that you forget to live. Voldemort wanted to live forever, but he created an existence that was barely life at all. He split his soul until he lost his humanity. He pushed away every person who might have cared for him. He became powerful, but he was empty. He achieved a kind of immortality, but at a cost that made that immortality a curse rather than a blessing. As we close this chapter, Voldemort waits in the forests of Albania, a broken shadow of his former self. He has fallen from the height of power to the depths of weakness. But his story is not over. The pieces of his soul remain in their hiding places. The Horcruxes still exist, and as long as they do, Voldemort cannot truly die. He waits in darkness, patient and full of hate, planning his return. But that is a story for another time. For now, we leave him there in the shadows, reduced to almost nothing, but still refusing to accept defeat. The rise of Lord Voldemort is complete. His first fall has happened, and the magical world has been changed forever by the choices one lonely boy made in his desperate quest to never die. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey through the hidden origins and rise of Lord Voldemort. We have explored the parts of his story that many fans do not know well. The years before he became the Dark Lord, everyone feared. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the untold story of Tom Riddle, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel for more content like this. Your support helps me create these detailed explorations of the stories we love. Until next time, sleep well, dream deeply, and remember that the choices we make define who we become. Good night, friends.